So I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that these are all legit fouls. I totally get how fans can be royally pissed off at Shai for being a foul merchant. I mean, heck, even Doris called them out for it during the actual broadcast.
So reason NBA Twitter likes to call him the free throw merchant, Mike.
Rather than lay out the rules and go frame by frame, let's look at this from another perspective. Let's just accept that Shai is a severe threat to your defense, and however he's going to do it, it will be annoying, frustrating, angering, and a severe detriment to his opponents actually winning the game. So if all that is true, what is the solution? Are you just gonna constantly throw up your arms and whine about it? Are you gonna shrug and just say, oh well, it was nice while it lasted against the Lakers and the Warriors? Or are you going to do some of that coaching stuff? You know, adjustments. Change the way you defend. If there's a guy who keeps hurting your defense when the ball is in his hands, then might I suggest getting it out of his hands? I honestly couldn't believe while watching this game that the Minnesota Timberwolves defense was willing to let him dance in the perimeter one-on-one and get to the hoop where he'd either score or get fouled. This was a great example. Here's a double ball screen to the right, a play OKC runs all the time, and let's examine how they defend it. You have two defenders run directly into the screens, leaving Rudy on an island. No one else runs at him as a second defender. They just let him have space to shot fake and draw the obvious foul. Same play the next time down. McDaniels gets stuck behind the Wallace screen. Naz Reid is 2 steps below the screen when it happens, while Randall is not in his stance, just standing next to Isaiah Hartenstein. Now you've got the MVP of the league going full speed downhill, executing a nifty spin move and finger roll right by Anthony Edwards too. In contrast, let's look at what happens when you change defensive tactics and eliminate the possibility of him scoring or getting fouled by running a second defender at him. We need only look at the previous round as he immediately gives it up, and the Nuggets defense has to be happy with anybody else shooting the ball even if there was a good ball movement into the shot. On this play, Russ runs at him, and there it is again. He gives the ball up, and now the others are forced to be playmakers to the benefit of Christian Braun and the rest of his teammates. Back to game 1, they just let him use the screen instead of blasting him and making him get rid of it quick. Had McDaniels been in his face, he would not have been able to make this easy pass to Wallace on the flare cut and hitting the wide open 3. The entire game he was defended like this. No urgency with the ball screener's man, bad positioning, and just allowing him to do whatever he wanted instead of trying to dictate the possessions yourself. The coaching criminality here is that I didn't have to look very hard to find evidence of the strategy I'm talking about working from the Timberwolves themselves. The goal has to be to get it out of his hands, as Conley and Reed show hard after the second ball screen. Clark rotated over perfectly and turns the deflection into a steal. This isn't infallible. The Thunder can score when defenses do this, but I'm sure they'd be more happy to see Kendrick Williams do a Hakeem Olajuwon impersonation against a tough defender than watching SGA traipse to the free throw line over and over. I couldn't believe we hardly saw this at all in game 1 when the name of the game against OKC has to be to get it out of his hands by any means necessary. The footage is littered with missed shot after turnover when they simply show a second defender in a strong way towards SGA. He'll make the right play, which is to pass it. And that's going to be a win for your defense even if other guys are hitting. You're staying out of foul trouble and playing the percentages properly since free throws are the highest efficiency play there is. And there's even evidence that SGA could struggle to pass out of these double teams. And for an athletic team like the Wolves, that would easily turn into fast break buckets, something they got absolutely zero of last night. I could see why Wolves coach Chris Finch would get a false sense of security since the score indicated that what they were doing was working. But everything changed in a hurry in the third quarter. Now, if you're not going to blast SGA, funneling him into Rudy isn't a bad idea, but watch Randall standing there. He's neither doubling or guarding his own man. And why is Conley guarding Dort without seeing the ball as well? He could have rotated on this easy kick out, and instead, here come the Thunder. McDaniels is a great defender, but there's just no way to consistently keep someone as explosive and slippery as Shai in front. But check Randall. He's just walking through the lane, no sense of urgency, is way late realizing where Chet is, and just allows him an easy jump hook. Randall was lighting it up in the first half and really was helping the Wolves, but all these good vibes didn't last, as his defense in the second half was completely suboptimal. No urgency, no stance, way late getting in position as Chet attacks on the catch and forces McDaniels to grab him by the shoulder and clearly foul him. But let's get back to the team defense on SGA. They could have blasted him right here at half court and had plenty of room to rotate when he gave it up. Then, with Rudy anchoring, Randall could have ran at him here and forced it out of his hands. Instead, they just let him start to cook as he pulls up without throwing that arm out, and the foot-to-foot contact caused SGA some imbalance, and the refs call it for an and one, something that easily could have been avoided altogether. Alexander Walker needs to be better at navigating around the ball screens if they're not going to offer a double or a hedge. They're playing with fire, giving up wide open threes to him here. When you've got Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels involved in the pick and roll, hard to believe you wouldn't unleash them and their athletic ability all over SGA. While they do finally get Nas up in his face along with Ant, Randall needs to be on the block at this point, and then rotating over before Chet gets close to the restricted area. McDaniels and Alexander Walker would make a great double team to force it out of his hands. Instead, they let him dictate the possession, and I don't know if you want to turn away or watch what Randall does here to not box out his man, who tips it back in to push the lead to 11. Even on this controversial play that people didn't want a foul called on, if Ant just loaded up to him in transition early, they would have forced it out of his hands and eliminated the possibility of something like this crazy shot even happening. Let's give Randall some credit for this possession despite no double when they had a golden opportunity with SGA's back turned to the basket. Randall's aggressive with his hands and body, moves his feet, and despite the good defense, Shai still gets right into the lane for a tough flip shot, and more playing with fire in my book. But he was back to his earlier defensive ways as the game was about to be put away for good. He simply skips backwards and watches the play all around him instead of recognizing that SGA is the whole kit and caboodle, folks. He's not doing anything out there. At this point, the Wolves felt like a broken team, resigned to their fate of playing SGA exactly the same way each and every time down the court. Randall could be shadowing on the strong side block to dissuade the drive. They could blast him way above the three-point line. Instead, McDaniels just foolishly reaches in for his sixth foul. I think he wanted out. Another adjustment Finch could have made was play zone. If you just went back to the Denver series, it was very effective in limiting his attacks on the rim as I outlined in a video from last round. OKC kept trying to inside ball screen the guard with SGA handling the ball. You would think this makes sense to have your best scorer trying to break down the zone, but that screen doesn't do anything because the second guard was just loading up to prevent him from using it. Now they've got other players trying to be playmakers, and that's a win for the defense. Here it is again, where the Nuggets are more than happy to bring the weak side guard over and Jokic up at the nail so SGA has to give it up. Letting the others try to create in space hasn't been successful yet since they're not comfortable in this role. By having two guards up top and the center near the nail, this clearly dissuades him from trying to get downhill and encourages him to pass it out of his hands. And if they try to run some other action away from him, the shot clock becomes another defender, and the nature of the zone means it's easier to throw that second defender at him and cause him to give it up and make anyone else beat you. It's not perfect, mind you. Sometimes those meddling kids solve the case and Scooby gets his Scooby snack while Shaggy says zoinks! But the best way to actually beat the Thunder, which is no easy feat in the slightest, is to limit SGA's time with the ball in his hands. The more opportunities you give to the other guys, the better chance you'll have at getting stops and avoiding fouls. I suspect we'll see this in Game 2, but if not, you know you're going to hear me asking, can you hear me shaking my head?